What is up, everybody? Welcome back to D9 Sports Talk, and let's dive on into those Week 17 games. Okay, so starting off on Sunday, a great matchup of the Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and this was honestly my favorite game to watch the entire weekend. I mean, that game gave us everything we wanted, honestly. Just great game overall, and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrows have an absolute connection, and they are going to be a very dangerous combo for years to come in the NFL. I mean, that was absolutely amazing to watch what they've been doing all season long, honestly. Not just that one game, but that one game was absolutely amazing. So that was very good to see. Moving forward, Giants versus the Bears. Honestly, I don't even think I've caught 1 second of that entire game. Bears blew them out, though. Wasn't even a close game. Philly versus Washington. Washington was up until they were up going into the half, and then Philly just strung some drives together in that second half, came back and got a win, securing their securing themselves in the playoffs. Then we have the Rams versus the Ravens. That was another great game. Honestly, I thought Huntley was going to pull it out for the Ravens there at the end, but with no Lamar Jackson, the Rams put some stuff together and ended up winning. Close one, 20-19. Buccaneers versus the Jets. Watching that game, I was like, are the Buccaneers dead? Is this too much for Brady to even overcome, missing all these guys? You have the Antonio Brown fiasco, which we'll visit later on in the show. But you just have nobody. I mean, he has Gronk left, and yeah, they still have Gronk, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate. It's like, but they don't have Godwin. And AB goes off and does whatever the hell AB does. And then that's it. You're like, okay, they can't put anything together for most of the game. But then you're like, oh, they have a chance to win here with a final possession, and they have Tom Brady as their quarterback. So for a second in that first half, I was like, these Buccaneers might not be as good as what people think this year. I mean, they just aren't going to be able to string anything together in this postseason. Then you have to remember, hey, Tom Brady is the GOAT, and as long as he's on your team and he's under center, then you got a chance. So good for Tampa Bay being able to pull that around with that fiasco of a Sunday they were having. Moving on, Raiders versus the Colts. And the Raiders with an upset. Colts were reluctant, kind of, it seemed like, to give Jonathan Taylor the ball. They just didn't. I mean, yeah, he still put up good numbers by the end of the day, but when you have a guy like Jonathan Taylor, just give him the ball, let him do what he does. Then moving forward to the Patriots and the mollywhopping they gave the Jaguars. And I told you last week that these Patriots were just going to throw the crap out of the ball. And this was a get-right game for Mac Jones, and was I right on that one? I mean, yeah, I was wrong on a lot of my predictions, but on that one, I was 100% right. They wanted to give Mac Jones that confidence, and I believe they have. Going into Week 18, secured the playoffs. So I feel like at this point, they're just trying to get ready for the playoffs, want to give him that little bit of extra confidence that they feel like that he needed. Moving forward, Falcons versus the Bills. Bills won that one pretty handily. And then Tennessee Titans getting that number 1 spot in the AFC, which is huge for them. Huge for them. Yeah, they faced Miami and absolutely blew them out. The score is 3-34. Wasn't even close. But that is so big for Tennessee to get that number 1 seed. Because now that gives King Henry Week 18 and the bye week, and then he can come back for the second round of the playoffs. Hopefully he will be back by then. Should be. Sounded like he's getting pretty close to returning, and they're just wanting to give him as much time as possible. And they secured that. I mean, I believe they have Jacksonville next week, so as long as they can come out, and take care of Jacksonville, which should not be a problem for them. It's probably a game Jacksonville's wanting to lose so they can get a good draft pick next year anyways. And then moving forward, Texans and the Niners. And the Niners didn't look too bad, considering that they were starting Trey Lance. So that was a good game for them. I'm sure that's something that they really wanted to see. I don't think that they're... I feel like they had expectations like, yeah, we should still win this game no matter who we throw out there at quarterback. But to see that their young guy coming in and he took care of it, he really took care of the ball. I'm trying to pull up his stats real quick. 16 for 23, so he had a 69% completion rating for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yes, he did have 1 interception, but when you got a young guy out there, those are numbers you're definitely going to be living with. You're not too upset about those at all. So San Francisco looking to make a run here in the postseason. They'll be a tricky team. I feel like they can maybe put a win. They might not get bounced first round. It's going to be interesting to see who they end up drawing, whether they drop to that 7th seed, say that 6th seed. So that'll be an interesting one to watch, see where they unfold for the playoffs. Okay, now moving forward to the Broncos and Chargers. And the Chargers kind of do what the Chargers did do after a loss. I mean, they always bounce back after losses. And they definitely did that. Then we have the Carolina Panthers and the Saints. And the Saints keeping those playoff hopes alive. They're right on the outside looking into the playoffs, hoping a couple things go wrong. Well, go right for them. Go wrong for San Francisco next week. And they can be getting into that playoff spot. And then we had Seattle versus the Lions, and I thought this was one the Lions could possibly win just because of the way the Seattle organization is looking right now, but Russ definitely came back and had a get-right game for himself. I don't believe that this one game against the sad Lions fixes everything that's wrong in this organization. I feel like that Russ is still, he's probably 60-40 on leaving right now. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I would not blame him for leaving. Pete Carroll kind of just doesn't want to be giving him the ball. I mean, they have great weapons out there. They just kind of aren't been wanting to let him do what Russ can do. I feel like that they just need to put the ball in his hands and let him go to work. Moving forward to the Arizona Cardinals and Cowboys. Another great game. Arizona Cardinals got the win. And what does this say for the Cowboys? I think a lot of people are questioning the Cowboys. It's like, oh, well, can they beat these good teams in the playoffs? Like, everyone thinks the Cowboys can go on this run, but can they? I mean, they're going to have a very tough playoff schedule. That NFC is nasty. So, in order for them to get into the Super Bowl, which I don't believe is going to happen, but they're going to have to beat really great teams to get there. So, I feel like with this loss, that kind of is like telling everybody, hey, the Cowboys are a good, not great team. Can beat most teams, can't beat great teams. And that's where I'd kind of put the Cowboys at this season. Yeah, they're probably going to get that number 2 spot, but when you're in the NFC West and you face Philly, Washington, and the Giants twice a year, that should be 6 wins right off the beat for you. So, moving forward to Minnesota and Green Bay. And Green Bay just completely dominated that game. There was not even 1 second where I was like, okay, this is fine. Like we have a chance to win this game. Even starting out, yeah, Minnesota's defense, that first 3 drives, had a very good bend, don't break mentality. Allowed Green Bay to have a field goal their first possession. Second possession, they stopped them on 4th down. Third possession, only another field goal. But when your offense has Sean Mannion in at quarterback, and that man, let me tell you, I think he had cinder blocks tied to his shoes because he could not move around in that pocket. A little bit in the second half, he had like 1 or 2 scrambles where he actually did something. But for the most of the time, it was literally Sean Mannion doing a 3-5-step drop, pocket collapsing, and him not knowing what the hell to do with the football and just getting sacked. A bunch of 3-and-outs. And when that is happening, you cannot ask your defense to keep coming out here and stopping that Packers offense. I mean, that Packers offense was rolling on our defense once they got started. And a lot of that is because the 3-and-outs, I mean, they were getting no time to rest. So, really terrible game for Minnesota. Really wish they would have just at least at the second half been like, yeah, Sean Mannion, garbage, can't get anything going. Let's just throw Kellen Mond in there. Let's see if he can let's just see how he can do in the NFL game. I mean, a lot of people were wanting to see that, and that we just never did. I feel like, because if this was a situation, and Kellen Mond did start, and he played how Sean Mannion did, we'd be like, okay, we need to go find somebody else because this guy sucks. Not the guy. But if he comes out, and I'm not saying we're going to win this game with Kellen Mond, not saying that at all. But if he just comes out and looks good, can move around in the pocket, can actually read the defense, and can get the ball out of his hands in a reasonable manner, timely fashion, instead of just holding on to it, then maybe we could have somebody. But us throwing Sean Mannion in there gave us no opportunity, and it does nothing for the organization moving forward. I think it was a big, bad, terrible play starting him in the first place. But I'm not in charge. I just throw out wild accusations whenever I feel like it, I guess. Anyways, moving on to Monday Night Football, and that was a fun game to watch just because of the whole Big Ben and the Steelers thing. This man has never had a below 500 record, and that is, quite frankly, just amazing. Don't even like Big Ben that much, to be frank with you. Don't like the Pittsburgh Steelers at all. But I mean, it's just always good to see. And my brother even said the other day, he says, this is why I love watching sports so much, because you see once-in-a-lifetime moments all the time. And I was like, that's actually really accurate, and that's probably the smartest thing he's ever said. But so that was just very fun to watch. Good for Big Ben getting a win in his final home game. And they have the slimmest of chance to make the playoffs now. Granted, the Titans have to lose to the Jaguars. The Chargers and Raiders are going to have to tie, and they're still going to have to beat Baltimore. So something that's not going to happen, if we're being honest. There's no chance that all that goes right for them. If it does, that'll be the wildest ending in the NFL probably ever. So as it's looking right now, NFC playoff picture: Packers are at 1, Rams are at 2, Buccaneers are at 3, Cowboys at 4, Cardinals 5, Eagles 7. And then in the hunt, we have San Francisco, who is technically in the 6th spot right now, but could be eliminated. And then we have the Saints just on the outside looking in, trying to get in, hoping some things go wrong for San Francisco, which it possibly can. I mean, they are facing the Rams. San Francisco is facing the Rams next week in Week 18, and that is not going to be an easy game. And that's one the Rams are probably going to try to win, or they could possibly get bounced out of their playoff spot, go into a wild card situation. The Arizona Cardinals can come up and take their spot. Doesn't really matter too much because they're not going to get the number 1 seed, but I feel like it's still one that the Rams just want to win that division in. And the Saints have to face the Falcons, which is a very gettable game for them. It's also one that I could see them losing, but Atlanta's kind of hit or miss this year, and it all depends on how much they want to give Cordell Patterson the ball. So that's for the NFC. Moving over to the AFC. Tennessee Titans in that 1 spot. Oh, they have the Texans next week. Excuse me, not the Jaguars. Then the Chiefs face the Broncos next week. They're in the number 2 spot. Cincinnati versus the Browns in the 3 spot. Bills have the 4 spot. Patriots in the 5th spot. And then not in it yet is the Colts and the Los Angeles Chargers, 6 and 7 respectfully. And then on the outside looking in, teams possibly able to make it, we have the Raiders, Steelers, and Ravens. All of those teams can make it. I'm pretty confident that what it is right now, it is going to stay in the AFC. Don't see any of those teams being able to make it. A lot of things would have to go right for the Steelers and Ravens, and I just don't think that the Chargers are going to lose to the Raiders this week. That's a big game for them, and I think they're just going to roll all over the Raiders. And I don't even know if Waller's going to be back yet or not. So that is the playoff picture. Not going to do any playoff predictions yet. Going to wait till probably next week for those. So let's move on forward to just Minnesota Vikings talk in general. Actually, let's talk about Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown, that's Antonio Brown without his uniform, we are told, without his jersey, and running onto the field. I don't know if that could have been a penalty.
All right, Jen Hale, get after that. We got to find out what's going on there.
She's got to catch him first. It's unbelievable. He's had his issues off the field. Now he's on the field creating an issue. Low pass hauled in and good enough for the first down.
Guys, very odd situation. Antonio Brown boiled over, very upset on the sideline, took off his shoulder pads. Mike Evans, O.J. Howard trying to convince him to keep them on. Obviously, they were unable to do so. He tossed his shoulder pads, stripped off his shirt and glove, threw those into the crowd, then ran across the field while the teams were still on the field, giving the crowd a peace out sign. I'll let you know when we hear something official on his status.
Thank you, Jen. It may be an Antonio Brown out in Tampa Bay. At some point, enough is enough. Brady, catch inside the 10. Watching the behavior, unusual behavior, in-game behavior of the shirtless Antonio Brown. Mike, not necessarily a penalty because he didn't interfere with the on-play activity.
Yeah, if he doesn't interfere with play and he's just headed to the locker room, you're not going to call anything there. He can throw things into the stands. It's a fine if he throws a football into the stands. But, you know, in this situation, let him get out of there and don't bring any more attention on him than you have to.
All right, thanks. That's the official ruling. Now, whether there'll be some kind of fine. Obviously, the team was frustrated, but over on the sideline, Jen Hale described that he was angry. Somebody tried to calm him down. I think it was Mike Evans. So he took off his jersey and then his shirt. And then as he throws this in, he was moving around on the field when they weren't snapping the ball, but the teams were on the field lined up for a play. And there's his.
I've never seen anything like that. I've been affiliated with the NFL for over 30 years, and I have never seen anything like that in those 30 years. It's just baffling.
Yeah, I thought it was like some crazy fan that ran out there at first. And there's a sack, the first sack of the game.
Antonio Brown was very close. I actually have some stats I'm going to pull up for how close he was to basically getting an extra $1 million. So he needed 8 more catches for $330,000. He needed another touchdown for another $330,000 and 55 more receiving yards for another $330,000. So that equals $1 million in essence. And is he going to probably get that? Probably next week. Who are they facing? Actually, they might not, because they are pretty set in stone. They are facing the Carolina Panthers next week, so they might not even play him next week with how injured they are. But he was getting very upset because Brady kind of just stopped looking at him, just started going back to Gronk. So he just felt like he wasn't getting what he deserved to be getting in the receiving game. Like, he wasn't getting his target shares that he felt like he should have been getting, even though he was targeted for like 15 times the week prior. But yeah, I think when you are a guy like Antonio Brown, who deserves to be making, probably around that $8 million range, and you're only getting the veterans minimum plus like $1 million incentive, so you should be making around $8 million. You're making around like 2.5 as long as you hit your incentives. Yeah, you're going to be a little flustered in what's going on. Like, you're going to be wanting to at least get all of your incentives so you can get all the money you can. And I feel like in his mind, it just wasn't happening. So it's not something, obviously I blame Antonio Brown for, and yeah, he's an idiot. He should not have done that. But that's still I just feel like he needs to like kind of relax a little bit. I mean, in my opinion, I think Antonio Brown, if we think of Antonio Brown as a football wide receiver, and that is it, nothing more. We don't talk about his personal life, anything that he does not between those two white lines on the field. I believe Antonio Brown is a top 10 wide receiver all time. And we can go into debates about that, but that is my thoughts on Antonio Brown. And I honestly feel like he could have been a top 5 if he would not have let his off-field actions dictate what happens on the field. But with him having these relapses, hurts his stats, and he just can't put up the yards and all that stuff to get into that top 5 section. But I still believe he's a top 10 all-time wide receiver. I mean, the man is crazy talented, but he kind of just let things go off the railings. So I also want to play this clip that Antonio Brown had addressing the Minnesota Vikings on Twitter. Or their fan base, at least, on Twitter.
I would love to have an opinion to actually tell you what should the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins, Mike Zimmer, their offense, defense. But, man, I'm trying to figure out my team, my squad, what I'm doing, where I'm going. So, Skull Nation, I would tell you how to fix the Vikings. Call Mike Zimmer. Let Mike Zimmer figure it out. He's the best of the best. You guys in good hands. Vikings Twitter, keep business booming.
All right. What is Antonio Brown doing here? Is he trying to get into this offense? Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think he's a top 10 wide receiver. And having Justin Jefferson, Antonio Brown, and Adam Thielen would be a crazy receiving core. But do we want that drama anyways? I personally do not, and I like Antonio Brown more than most people do. And honestly, when he originally was leaving Pittsburgh, I was wanting him to come over, and it made more sense then when we had Diggs and Thielen, and then we would have had AB as our receiving core. Not only that, but we had Xavier Rhodes, which I don't know if you guys know this, but Xavier Rhodes and Antonio Brown are both very good friends. And it was like right after Xavier Rhodes just came out of his just lockdown year where he was locking up everybody, like held Mike Evans to blanked Mike Evans, held Julio Jones to only 2 catches back when Julio was getting constant targets, shut down Michael Thomas, was he held Antonio Brown to 1 catch for 11 yards when Minnesota faced Pittsburgh that year. So it was like right when Xavier Rhodes was coming off that great season. And those two would practice. They're both from South Florida. They would practice together in the offseason. Like, that's why I believe great people are great. Okay, so if you look at Antonio Brown, absolute stud of receiver. Xavier Rhodes is a great cornerback, and they practice in the offseason. So iron sharpens iron. Both those guys are getting better. So I thought back then it made more sense for Antonio Brown to come over. But now I just don't want him. I mean, if he's basically telling Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, to, go screw yourself, even after Tom Brady's like, yeah, just come live with me in Tampa Bay. He's like, I'll just let you live in the guest house, basically. And you can stay with me, and I'll take care of you, while you're down here, and we can get everything straightened away. Just come play good football. And he wants to mouth off to Tom Brady and just kind of leave Tom Brady. And now what's he going to do to Kirk Cousins, And I understand he's like, yeah, just trust Zimmer. And I like Zimmer a lot as a defensive guy, but not an offensive guy. He is not an offensive specialist. Great for the defensive side of the football. So I feel like this is kind of Antonio Brown just being like, oh, crap, I'm out of a job. I need to go somewhere. And I think it's more he's thinking, oh, playing with JJ would be awesome. I feel like that's what's going on in his head. So he's trying to save face and try to, play nice and see if maybe we could extend him an offer. And I feel like that's what he's trying to do by shout out Mike Zimmer. Jesus, saying he's the best of the best, which I do think Zimmer's a great coach. But the best of the best, no. I mean, Zimmer's a solid coach. He's maybe I don't even know if he's around 10th for coaches in the NFL. I mean, I could easily list probably 6 off the top of my head that I would say are remarkably better coaches than what Zimmer is, probably even more. So, no, I do not think that Zimmer is the best of the best. Is a good coach, not the best of the best. So I just feel like this is Antonio Brown trying to weasel his way back into somewhere. And I think it's just too late for him. I think Minnesota just needs to kind of look at what they have. And our roster is good. I think it is our front office situation that needs to be changing in the offseason in order for us to get to where we want to be. So that is all I have for you. Just give me your thoughts on AB and his wildness and everything he did on Sunday, and then what he's trying to do with Minnesota. Do you think he's trying to weasel his way in, or is he just kind of, just trying to make himself look more human in the eyes of other teams so that they could possibly bring him in? So that's all I got. Make sure you leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Peace.